How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to the Stupid Questions podcast. Today on the pod, we're going to be talking with Steph Clutterbuck. She is a second-year professional triathlete, has had a background in rowing and swimming and a few other things. Really enjoy getting to connect with her. She is the host or co-host of Buck the Trend podcast. We'll make sure to list that in the show notes so you can check that out as well. By the time this airs, she will have already raced Ironman Hamburg, which is what we are going to be talking about a bit in her recent race at Ironman Texas as well. Super sweet gal, really awesome story. Hope you guys enjoy it. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Steph Clutterbuck. So tell me a little bit, where are you at right now? I assume you're back home or somewhere near home?
Yes, yeah. So I am at home after a month of traveling in April, which
Okay.
has been, I mean, it was such an amazing trip. It was like my first proper trip as a professional for more than just a race,
Yeah.
or just a training camp, because we kind of did both. So it's been, that was great, but it has been lovely being home. Just
Mm-hmm.
own bed, own like kitchen and routine. And we kind of started to hit UK spring summertime as well. So the weather's showing up for us too, which is always lovely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I'm in Northern California. Just recently moved here, but it's been getting into more of the summer vibes for sure. We had our first day of rain in like 6 weeks just the other day, so it was nice to get a little bit of rain. But I'm definitely enjoying the many months of summer in heat.
Mm.
It's kind of been fun so far. Yeah. So where are you from originally, and is that where you're living now?
Yeah, so I live in the Cotswolds near Bath in the southwest of the UK, and it is actually where I grew up. But
Okay.
I moved away, and I left home, and then found myself back when I was looking at places that we wanted to settle, and
Hmm.
that had, I guess, job opportunities, but also good places to train. And the cycling here is just amazing. So it
Yeah.
was a bit of a no-brainer to return home.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's lovely. I've got family very close, which helps when I need an emergency dinner. I can give my mum a call and she'll
Oh,
cook dinner for
that's
me.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. How far away is she living from you in terms of
Oh,
just like
literally
time?
10 minutes.
Oh, that's so nice.
Mm. Yeah, which is great.
Yeah. When you were younger, did you have the mentality of, oh, I want to, flock from the nest and get out and go and mark my own path? Did you ever think that you'd be coming back home?
I don't think I ever really thought about it. When I was at school, I had, like, there was always questions about, should I go to the US on scholarship for swimming, or do I stay in the UK? And I didn't really have any desire to go out of the country, but I was desperate to kind of go away to university and experience life at uni. But I guess I didn't really think about life after that. That is, like,
Yeah.
I'll go to university and I'll experience that, and then I'll be an adult when I graduate, and we'll
Yeah,
deal with
yeah,
that when it comes. But I
yeah.
haven't really hit the adult part yet. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. When did you graduate university?
2016
Okay.
was my undergraduate, and 2017 for my master's. So
Okay, nice. Yeah, very similar. I graduated in 2017 with a bachelor's, not a master's. So you're a bit more educated than
Uh,
I.
I don't know about that. The masters was literally so that I had an excuse to carry on rowing for a year. So,
Oh, okay, nice. So I heard some swimming in there. I've heard rowing.
mm,
Obviously, the collegiate aspect was a big part of your future and what you were aiming for. When did you first like get into what sports when you were younger?
yeah, my parents, when I was growing up, insisted that I learnt to swim. So they,
Okay.
like, it was a skill that was a non-negotiable for them. And I think I embraced the competitive nature very early on. So it kind of got to, I think I was about 7, and the swimming lessons were going to stop because I could swim by that point. And I was like, I
Hmm.
don't want to stop swimming.
Yeah.
So we found a swimming club, and I joined a swimming club, and that was kind of it for the next 12 years. Like,
Wow, it's a long
I
stint
was
though.
a swimmer. Yeah.
Yeah.
200 backstroker, which was worst event, but it was the one that I was good at, which is
Yeah.
such a shame. I had a love-hate relationship with it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Um, so yeah, I kind of, that was my childhood. That was what I was doing through my formative years, and who I identified as I was growing up. And then I think, like so many swimmers that either did or didn't make it, I was in the didn't make it category. I fell out of love with it. That there
Mm.
was a huge amount of resentment towards the sport because, well, I gave up everything for it. I didn't have a
Yeah.
normal like my teenage years were not traditional.
Mm.
And well, I mean, it depends what the traditional is, isn't it? But yeah, I dedicated all of my spare time around school to swimming.
Yeah.
And I went to university to not do sport. I just wanted to be normal. Um, I was done with it, and then decided we have something called Freshers Fair. So it's where you go in your first year to look at like different sports teams and different clubs that you might want to join. And the rowing team was huge, and I was like, oh, that looks like a really good way to meet people. That's kind of fun. I'll join. So I joined that and ended up being quite good at it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was actually good at rowing at that point. Probably not. I was just really good at pushing very, very hard,
Mm.
which is not normal. Um, and then yeah, that was it for the next like 5 years. So
Yeah.
all the way through to the age of 24, I was in full time
Yeah.
sport essentially.
Yeah, lots there. So going back just a bit, like you said, 12 years of swimming, and then you grew to that place of resentment. And I have heard that story from even Olympic swimmers. Like that seems to happen at times. But for you, in that lead up to the eventual, I'm done with this, where was your motivation to continue into the sport through those 12 years solely from yourself, or was there external factors like with your parents, like, no, you should really keep doing it, you have a future, or what was the motivation?
It was all internal.
Yeah.
We pushy parents are a real thing in swimming.
Mm.
They're everywhere, and it's intense, and
Yeah.
it is relentless as a swimmer, whether or not they're your parents, just kind of experiencing that towards another individual.
Mm.
My mum had grown up as a swimmer and therefore had also experienced pushy parents.
Yeah.
And they'd made a commitment that they didn't want that. They wanted both me and my sister to swim because we wanted to swim. My sister stopped quite a few years before I did, so it was not something that they were pushing me towards.
Yeah.
I was the I was the driving factor, and unfortunately, you can't make me do anything I don't want to do. So it was very much it was very much me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I actually went away to school for my sixth form years, so my last 2 years at high school.
Okay.
And so I was away from home, and therefore like in complete control of what I was doing, because if I
Mm.
didn't want to turn up, I just didn't go.
Mm.
And it it was, I loved it. It was amazing, and the squad environment there was fab, and at no point was not turning up ever an option. Like, you wanted to turn up and you wanted to be around people, and we were all striving to do great things. And there are people that I train with that now have Olympic medals, and that's like really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I was just not one of those people.
Yeah. You also said a few minutes ago, in the last piece of the conversation, like that you were trying to be normal. Would you consider yourself normal now?
Oh, not even remotely. I gave
Yeah.
up on that goal a very, very long time ago.
Yeah. What makes you abnormal? Like, obviously it's the drive for sport, but I'm curious to know, like, the nature versus the nurture aspect of who you were. It sounds like your parents weren't the pushy parents, but you had an internal motivation and drive that it seems like a lot of people can be born with, but
Yeah.
how would you assign that?
Yeah, I think I've never struggled with motivation. Um, well, I don't know if that's true. I've never needed motivation, I think, is
Yeah, by and
probably
large, yeah.
more accurate. So therefore it's never been a thing that I've kind of considered. Everything, like, I know why I want to do things, and therefore I go after it with everything that I can, and I always have done. I think that I watched kind of friends growing up, and I was always in awe of how people could like manage themselves through social situations, and balance kind of friendships and school and all of that sort of stuff. Whereas my mind, it I have learned in the last couple of years, I'm really introverted.
Mm.
So these big social situations I found very, very hard, and sport was always a fallback. It was my safe space, because swimming, it's just you and the black line. Rowing, it's you in a boat, and then obviously triathlon, it's you on your own for 9 hours of the day, which,
Mm.
which for me is heaven. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
There's a lot
Just
of
me.
internal dialogue that happens, I
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah, it's great. And I think I've learned so much of myself about myself, like growing up through those three sports where it is you and your mind, and you
Mm,
do have to become friends with yourself, because you have conversations with
mm,
yourself to get yourself through whatever it is that you're moving through. And I feel very privileged that I've had the time and space to have done that throughout
mm-hmm.
my life.
Yeah, as you've gone through, especially from such a young age, you've had that motivation, you're driving towards some kind of goal. I'm curious how you have viewed, because you said being friends with yourself, which kind of reminds me of, well, how do you value yourself and how do you measure your own worth internally
Mm.
versus, yeah, I'll just leave it open-ended like that.
Yeah, I think it, for me, even though it's internal, I I place a huge amount of like my worth on the impact that I can have on other people.
Hmm.
So yes, with triathlon, there is a big part of it that I want to be the best that I can be. And that is what drives kind of the nitty gritty of turning up and training and suffering. But there's
Right.
also this other piece around creating a legacy and leaving the sport in a better place than when I found it. And I think
Hmm.
as a professional, that is part of our role within every sport that we're in, is where we see something that can be changed, we commit to supporting people to change it.
Yeah.
So you've got this kind of weird two pronged, like, I guess, balance beam of my worth is how good I am versus my worth is the impact that I leave behind. And I'm hoping that I can continue to like marry them up. And when I
Mm.
leave the sport, I will be leaving it having done the best that I can, because I haven't done that yet in either of the other sports. So I'm committed to doing that because I'd like to leave a sport feeling fulfilled, but also finding that fulfillment elsewhere as well and leaving it better than the kind of the moment that I stepped in back in 2019.
Mm. Yeah, that's super deep. I love the aspect of like leaving it a better place by positively impacting the people around you. Sometimes that can be easy, and other times that can be very difficult, depending on the humans that we
Mm.
interact with. But in terms of, you said you wanted to find in this sport the kind of the pinnacle or fulfillment of being all that you can be, feeling like you've hit your best. I hesitate to ask this question because I don't know if it's like if it's even possible to pull it out. But how do you think that, or what do you think would need to happen internally, externally, however you see it, for you to stand up and say like, yeah, I feel fulfilled in this. This chapter has been sealed and completed. And
Oh, that is a big question. I think there are like I say they're boring, but they're not boring. There's like the obvious ones that I'd love to be world champion, and I think that is what drives me.
yeah,
But that isn't the sole definer of success, because that is also reliant on other people. For me to be world champion, other people need to not be.
hmm,
And that in itself is quite a risky thing to have as a goal.
yeah,
um, I actually think it's something that you'll just know,
mm,
in that we we're always striving for a perfect race, but we basically never have one. Um, and I think there will be a point in time where physiologically we don't see the adaptations in training that we are currently seeing, and we don't see the progress that we are currently seeing. So then it's all about race execution. And one day I am hoping that I will just have a race that I'm like, that is as close to perfect as it's going to get. And in that moment, either you're going to be like, okay, I'm ready to step away, or I think I've still got more. I want to find more. Um, so I don't think there's a measure. I don't think there's a time. I think it's just like there is a feeling that we may or may not get when the
mm,
time has come. That's like, actually, I am content to be like, I've done all that I can do here.
mm.
And this is me ready to move on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the older we get, I don't know how old you are, but I'll be 33. I assume you're close in age because of your university graduation.
Turning
You're
31 in a couple of days. Yeah.
okay. Oh, well, early happy birthday to you.
Thank
That's
you.
exciting. It's interesting to me because as I've gotten older, just my perspective on what a pinnacle for any level of like peak fitness or mental fitness or even what I remember when my mother turned 30 years old. Okay, she had me relatively young, obviously. And I remember thinking that is an ancient age. And now that I sit here at 33, I'm like, well, like 45, like that seems, maybe that's starting to approach old. But it's like the older I get, the mountain seems a little taller, the wave seems a little bit further ahead. I know there will come a time when physiologically, like I'll realize, okay, my brain thinks I can do this, but my
Mm,
body cannot. So there is that. So with the goals and the perspective shifts, you mentioned contentment. Finding contentment is like a very difficult thing, I think, actually to do practically for people that have very high aspirations and ambition. You agree?
yeah, oh, for sure. Because there's always something that doesn't go right. And I think this is when you're looking for a perfect race. And all of our race plans are, if we execute it, that would be excellent. But I always say when I talk to people that don't do Ironmans is imagine everything that goes wrong in a normal day. It doesn't have to be big things. Like you could just drop something on the floor or stub your toe. And then put yourself at your physical limit, and then imagine that again,
Mm,
where you start to lose kind of cognitive ability and all that sort of stuff. That it Doing an Ironman starts to become how well can you deal with things going wrong. So
mm.
it's almost like we're planning for a perfect race that is almost certainly not going to happen because stuff goes wrong and that's fine. Um, and I don't know how content you would feel if you have a perfect race, because it might actually just feel like, oh, that was a bit of an anticlimax. Like,
Yeah.
where was the fireworks that I'm used
Mm-hmm.
to?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like talking about all the little things in life that go wrong, I'm thinking of just historically some of the more famous or well-known generals or captains or lieutenants, just a lot of these different war stories. It's typically the people who are able to maintain a level of calm
Mm,
amidst extreme chaos that like keeps you just really out of harm's way. I mean, war is obviously a terrible thing, and this isn't a perfect comparison, but I'm thinking, I've really learned as I've gotten older, like the importance of staying calm, like getting lost in the backwoods of like this 18-mile thing. Like I remember sitting one place panicking and my heart rate's hitting like 180 beats just because I'm panicking and I'm dehydrated. And I'm thinking, now what you're talking about with Ironman, it's like if you get into these situations, the ability to stay calm is very difficult.
mm.
Like you have to really train that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I can't remember who it was, but it was a sports psychologist who talked about work they'd been doing with their athletes to help them positively plan their way out of situations. And I loved that because one thing we can guarantee is that we'll make a mistake or something will go wrong, especially, Oceanside, I hit a pothole and I lost my bottle. There's stuff that happens that
Hmm.
can feel like the end of the world and can feel like the world is against you. But if you are confident in your ability to positively plan your way forwards and out and up and through and all that stuff, and very quickly kind of come up with, okay, so I've lost my bottle, I've lost X amount of carbs. I either need to pick up another bottle with fluids or salt, or I need to pick up X amounts of carbs, or I need to adjust my effort. All of a sudden, it doesn't feel like the end of the world anymore.
Hmm.
And your performance is impacted so much less. And then you take that learning forwards and you're like, actually, I'm going to strap in my bottles even tighter, or I'm going to change the position of the bottles, or I'm just going to not ride over potholes because that
Yeah.
would be very sensible. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that is our power as athletes, because everyone trains really hard. Everyone trains a lot. We're all working to our kind of physiological maximum,
Hmm.
but what differentiates us is mindset, and it is the ability to adapt in races. And yeah, I think it's something that I can control. I'm not capable of being as fast as Taylor Nibb on a bike or run as fast as Cat Matthews, but what I can make sure that I can do is be resilient and be mindful and be able to plan when situations go wrong and stay calm when things kind of don't go as I expected, because that's fully in my control.
Mm. Have you always, and it's kind of a dumb question, I guess, but being able to have that mindset of, oh, I can only control what I can control, is that something you've had to learn over time?
Oh, big time. So when I was as a rower, it was actually towards the back end of my swimming career, I started to have a kind of performance anxiety in races,
Hmm.
and we thought we'd managed to solve it, but I think we just put a plaster over the situation. And then when I got back into when I was rowing and performance became a focus, it was very obvious that the problem was still there, and I was experiencing huge amounts of self doubt, and I have perfectionist tendencies,
Mm.
and they were not being useful. They were very much getting in the way, and I was having a lot of intrusive thoughts about what I was or could be capable of. So if a session wasn't going exactly as it needed to, I would completely spiral,
Mhm.
which is a huge problem because, as we've discussed, things go wrong.
Yeah.
And it got to the point that it was basically every week I was having these kind of panic attacks. So I had to start. I started working with a psychologist for for the rest of my rowing career, actually, just to help me understand like my mind and what was going on, and also to help rationalize with the thoughts that I was experiencing.
Yeah.
Um, and then after that, I kind of once I stopped rowing again, I swore off performance sport
Mhm.
and started to work within a people and behavioral consultancy.
Okay.
So we did a lot of work with businesses to help them support their people better and create cultures of performance, but hopefully healthy performance rather than unhealthy
Mm.
performance. It's relentless. And I learned a lot through that as well around the kind of the thinking behind what makes you resilient, but also the triggers that we can experience that will spike stress and anxiety and stuff like that. And they're all things that I've used to shape who I am now as an athlete.
Mm.
Um, because again, it's stuff that I can control, and I love having knowledge and understanding things and understanding why my brain works in certain ways. So for me, kind of learning all of that has it's helped me almost distance myself from the super emotional side of my brain and be like, oh no, I understand why you're reacting like that, and I'm going to sit and I'm going to listen to you, but I'm basically going to ignore you and we're going to move forwards.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself a relatively emotional person?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
It's yeah it I like that I am. I
Yeah.
feel a lot. I feel a lot of emotions, but I've had to learn when to switch them off.
Mm. What helps you to practically like switch them off? Have you trained like just to kind of bury it for a little bit and then you reopen it later on purpose, or like how does that work?
I always see it as a light switch.
Yeah.
So there are like when sessions are getting it's usually around sessions, like when sessions are getting hard, especially if they're feeling harder than or I think they
You
should.
think they should. Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, okay, we're just going to switch that off.
Mm.
And that has, I mean, it's taken a lot of time, and it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
So sometimes you are kind of you you switch it off, but it ends up being on a dimmer switch, and it goes half off rather than
Yeah.
fully off.
Yeah, good analogy.
Yeah.
As you have gained more experience and knowledge just in kind of the sports psychology side or just psychology in general with how to manage expectations and work with anxiety and turning that on and off, have you found that underlying issues for like panic attacks or anxiety or stress as related to a session, like, oh, I'm not hitting these numbers, that there's usually like a deeper thing going on internally that's maybe related to something more personal life, or is it usually not as that deep?
I think a lot of it. So when I was rowing, a lot of it was driven by conversations that were happening about my capability as an athlete that didn't involve me. So it was whether I would make it or not, whether I was good
Mm-hmm.
enough or not, but I was not involved. So the British rowing has
Yeah,
some
making the cut.
guidelines. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like you have ergo times that you have to hit. And I was quite small, and also I was very injured. So I'd really struggled on the rowing machine because I just didn't have the power that girls that were kind of 15 kilos heavier than I was
Mm-hmm.
did. Um, and I think that reawakened the feelings that I had from my swimming career where I didn't achieve what I wanted to.
Mm.
So I didn't get an international vest that I wanted. I mean, it all just seems so arbitrary now, but the things that I
It
was
feels
aiming
big
for
at
as
the
a
moment.
swimmer,
Yeah.
yeah, it was huge. And I, you know, I finished the sport feeling very underwhelmed, and then I go into rowing, and I was progressing well, and then these conversations start happening, and it drags up all of that sort of stuff that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, stuff that I hadn't processed because I was 19. And how do you work through stuff like that when you don't even know what it is or whether you need to?
Mm.
Um, So when I was in this transitionary phase between rowing and triathlon, when triathlon was not even a thing, it wasn't a consideration. I did process all of those feelings from rowing, and I did work through a huge amount around kind of the self-belief and my worth, and not tying it to one thing, and making sure that, you know, if you're measuring yourself with a yardstick, it's got to be one that you actually have full control over, and not
Mm,
one that relies on other people not succeeding or other people's opinions of you. It's something that you can measure and that you can hold tight, because that's all that counts.
mm,
So when I kind of stepped into triathlon, I had all the scars, I suppose, from working through those things from swimming and rowing, but had huge amounts of lessons that's definitely made me more resilient with my thoughts and aware of kind of what is going on and where my brain might take me. And I still get them. Like, those thoughts are still there. I'm just
hmm.
able to converse with them in a slightly more healthy way than I was before.
Yeah. Yeah, I always love hearing the story, especially from not everybody gets to this point. Honestly, even in their career, I think as an athlete, or even outside of being an athlete, just living professionally, to be able to separate the value or how we perceive ourselves, like where our value and true identity comes from. It sounds like from a very young age, like you were able to start to realize from swimming, oh, maybe my identity shouldn't be so wrapped up in this, and I'm gonna throw it out. And then you kind of try to relearn that lesson with rowing, and it sounds like you've come full circle and been able to really disassociate yourself to a degree. I mean, obviously, what we do is a piece of who we are, but the values, the mindsets, the perspectives we take into applying our all to whatever that thing is, that can be transplanted to many other different types of professions. So that's why I love having these conversations, just to hear how people have gone through those steps. Because I think everybody, even age groupers or whoever, because I've met plenty of people who have failed relationships, marriages, lives, because they end up really worshiping the thing,
Mm.
or like, I'm going to be this. This is who I am. And then when that doesn't work, when a hip doesn't work, when you can't swim or something, it's like everything melts around us.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Like, I think when, because I did it as an age grouper as well. It's like at work, someone says, you know, what do you do? I'm a triathlete.
Yeah.
And now someone
Yeah.
asks, like, yeah, it's like, that's what that's what I do. And I just had this complete unwillingness to be associated with work. So therefore, triathlon was everything. Whereas now, as a professional, I'm like, oh, I'm a podcaster. Or
Nice.
I'm a content creator.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
just happen
The
to
creator
also be,
economy.
yeah,
Yeah.
just a professional triathlete at the same time. And when I was in the US, I was so fortunate that uh, Christian Gustav and Casper Storms were training there as well. So got to like meet them for the first time. And what I was absolutely blown away with was how much fun they have.
Mm,
Like, for them, it's fun, and they work super hard, but it's not perfect. And if they like your swim session more than theirs, they'll do your swim session. You know, it's not done exactly as Training Peaks says it needs to be done. And yes, they are triathletes, but they're also going to go for coffee after a swim, and then they're going to go and bring in some CrossFitters to record a YouTube for them, and all this brilliant stuff that
yeah.
is not actually really about triathlon at all.
Mm.
And you're like, oh, there are age groupers that take this much more seriously than some of the top professionals in the
Oh,
world,
yeah.
and then they miss out on so much because they miss out on the fun side.
Yeah. Yeah, being human. That's something that from this podcast, even, I hope more people continue to come on and be able to give that platform to let people know, like, hey, most of these people, in fact, all of them, they're all just humans at the end of the day. We all were born by our parents. We all grew up as little children, and then, we skinned our knee for the first time. And because I've been fortunate to meet people who also, in the other side of the world in business, run very big companies or have founded huge companies. And at the end of the day, like, I'll give one short example because it's so cool. Like, I got to meet through a friend. His dad had co-founded Oakley Sunglasses, and nobody knows this guy's name. And he lives in this quaint place up in the Pacific Northwest. And I got to sit there on Thanksgiving Day with them and their family, and just, they were having a little squabble around the Thanksgiving dinner table. And I realized at that moment, I was like, we're all just humans. Like, it was a brother and a sister basically trying to hold each other in a headlock, and they're good friends. And it really hit me over the top of the head. I was like, well, at the end of the day, I think people just want to be treated like you're another human being, because
Mm.
we're all trying to figure it out. We all have our quirks. We're all this, that, and the other. But I think that can also be inspiring because it lets people know, like, oh yeah, I don't have to take this as seriously. I can be human. I can make the mistakes and go the path.
100%. And also, like, these people being human means that they were also not where they are now once before. So anyone can get there.
Yeah.
That's what I love. Like, you meet these athletes who are at the top of their sport and you're like, oh, you are so normal. And well, normal in the way that I'm also normal, like very
Yeah.
not normal.
Yeah.
Very
Very
not
abnormal.
normal.
Yeah.
But it is inspiring. You're like, I feel like, yeah, it's when you get to know the humans that sit behind the sport, it opens up so much intrigue. And it's what I love about Ironmans is the stories that every athlete has when they cross the finish line. That I mean, Kat winning Texas, Kat's relationship with Texas in itself is kind of it's a roller coaster, and quite rightly so. So when she comes back and wins, everybody feels it. And then you had Taylor, who was, it was her second Ironman, and she went in as favorite. Well, everyone was talking about her as favorite. She's like, I just want to finish.
Yeah.
This is really hard. This is a long
Yeah.
day. And like, you can go through all of the top 10 and just reel off these incredible stories of perseverance that they have had to get across that finish line. And it's always missed. We always miss those bits. But it's just, yeah, that's what I love about the sport.
Yeah. There's definitely normalcy and abnormality for sure.
Mm.
So I'm curious, we've talked a little bit about, or a lot about your why. We talked about what you're doing. I'm curious to know from your perspective, given the context of our, 30 minutes of conversation so far, who do you think that Steph is?
Oh God, I don't know. I think I'm still figuring it out, and I see, like, I love that. I love that I don't know yet, because when I was growing up, I thought I'd have everything sorted out by the time I was 26. And like, I'd be done with sport and I'd have a job and I'd own a house and I'd probably have kids, and that would be that, and we'd be done. And yeah, it would be, I would be in my box, and that would be who I am. And I feel like from January last year, I've kind of, I mean, I know I was almost 30 at this point, so I hadn't quite hit my age of 26 deadline. But I ripped all of that up. I quit my job that was the corporate job that as growing up was the thing that you kind of aspired to having. And
Yeah.
I own a house. I'm very fortunate I do that, but I don't know who I am, and I like that, because it means that who I am is I'm exploring, I'm figuring it out, I'm experiencing the world. I get to travel and I get to not be in a box. And it's something that, yeah, I love, because then I've not put myself in a corner, to
Yeah.
quote a wonderful film.
Yeah. So who do you think that you're more like, your mom or your dad?
That's an excellent question. I'm probably more like my dad, uh, in that, yeah, he's very reflective, and my mum is excellent in social situations. Like, she can hold a room, whereas much like my dad, I am on the quiet, which is weird, considering I sit on podcasts and talk, and
Yeah.
I'm very active on social media, but it's just me and my phone.
Yeah.
Like,
It's easier to do when you're not
it's so
surrounded by
much
1,000
easier.
faces. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say that I'm much more like my dad.
Yeah. Do you
Mm.
do you mind, or do you care, or do you like or dislike the fact that you are so introverted?
No, I don't. And it was a proper light bulb moment, kind of figuring it out, because it's nothing, like, I don't really put much stock in it. It's just a piece of me that, when I understood it, I was kind of like, oh, that's why I get so tired. That's why I find these things so hard, and I can last for about 30 minutes before my brain wanders off. And that's
Yeah.
what, like, I hate walking into rooms first. Someone has to go in before me. I can't open doors. Like, and it's just it's just a thing. It's just a quirk, and that's fine. But yeah, I don't mind at all, because it's me, and it hasn't stopped me having, like, really wonderful friendships, and it doesn't mean that I hate people or anything
Yeah.
like that. It's the big kind of I get very, very overwhelmed and overstimulated in big groups.
Hmm.
So I just get to, I'm better off if I'm speaking to a smaller group of people.
Yeah. Yeah. The older I've gotten, so I grew up very extroverted, probably more like my mom. She is like a world of difference level of extroverted than I am. And people think that I'm very extroverted, but as I've gotten older, it's interesting how we start to change a little bit. And I started have taking on more of the appreciation for the silent morning or evening or a
Mm.
few hours or just sitting out in the sun and kind of not doing anything else except for staring at some trees or something like that. There is something about it that brings a lot of value, and especially the podcast, the one-on-one
Mm.
conversations. Yeah, if there's one thing I learned from growing up and getting into college and getting in the business world a little bit, it was always the one-on-one conversations because you can learn so much about just life through someone else's eyes and perspectives. Because so many times, even when I've invited guests on, I'll see their social media. It's usually how I engage first, and then I'll draft up unbeknownst or not meaning to, but drop this draft in my head of who I think they are, and then I get into a conversation with them, and I'm like, "Wow, I was totally wrong." Like 99% of the time, and that's a good thing. And it's
Yeah.
not like, "Oh, I think these people are bad people," but yeah, it's just interesting how the one-on-one conversations can add a ton of value.
Oh, for sure. And I think social media is it's such a powerful place. But even when you try and keep it as real as you can, it's not it's not real.
Yeah.
And people are always surprised when they're like, "Oh, you you struggle in social, like you struggle in big groups." I'm like, "Yeah, but you post on social media all the time." It's like, yeah, and that I don't have to see anyone. I don't
Yeah,
have
you
to
don't have to
see
see the
anyone.
eyeballs. It's just a number at the end of the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I then get to have like a series of one-on-one conversations with people because it's just, if it's someone messaging me, it's just one person and I can engage or choose not to engage. Um, but yeah, I think, yeah, social media is definitely skewed like what people see as real and who people are. And but then it's then fun when you do meet them or get to speak to them for the first time and you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I do get to know you as a completely different person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we all have this like social media, I don't know, filter about us a little bit. I try not to establish it, but even in my own self, when I've like recorded a video or something and then I watch it later, I'm like, I have like this different tone that I use. It's almost like how we talk to our dogs or cats or
Yeah.
something. It's like, what is this thing that I'm doing?
It's the presenter voice.
Mm-hmm.
You see it when like, I mean, I love the GTN, not a great global
Yeah.
triathlon network,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they have their presenter voices, and you
Yeah.
speak to them like away from that, and you're like, oh, you
Did you
don't talk like
know
that.
that da 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 da? Today we're
Yeah,
going to be talking about this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's almost like a newscaster a little bit. Yeah.
exactly.
So, talk to me a little bit about Buck the Trend podcast. And this
Mm.
is your podcast that you started. You guys have been rolling, and you're obviously serious now. You got the headphones and
I've got
the
all of the
mic.
gear.
I think are your headphones Audio Technica as well?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah. So you're like
yeah.
matching, making me look bad here. I need to. I've been using these since day one. I need to get some different. But
I'm pretty sure they just had a deal on, so I bought both.
nice. That's what's up. That's what's up. Got to take advantage of it. So tell me about the podcast. What is the aim, kind of the goal, or why you're doing it, why you started it?
I mean, there's so many. There's lots of different reasons. So I'll talk you through all of them. Why not?
Yeah.
Part of being a professional athlete is, I think, anyway, it's not just about performance on the field anymore or out on the course. And we are all creating our own businesses that sit behind who we are as athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And people are doing it, and the really successful athletes have done it for years. And we saw creating a podcast as something that's actually not, while there are so many podcasts, there aren't many done by athletes as like people who are in the sport talking through their experiences as a professional. So we decided it was so it's me and my partner Matt that it would be a really good kind of tool within our business to say we have a podcast and it is kind of part of who Steph is as a professional athlete. That's kind of the, I guess, really unemotional side.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to have a bit more of an outlet to share with people my experiences as a professional. So we'd done the first year and I'd learned a huge amount. And I was fortunate enough to qualify for Kona last year. So I will have had like over 12 months to build up for it. And we were like, you know what? How cool would it be is instead of just a YouTube series, which we have yet to start, why not do
Been there.
yeah, podcasting is just easier. Why
Mm-hmm.
not do a podcast that is a performance driven podcast that leads us up to Kona, where we get to explore all of the things that we kind of love to hear about in podcasts, but through the eyes of a professional triathlete and her really wonderful partner who gets dragged along for all of the ups and downs of every race day and training day and all of that sort of stuff. So
Way to go, Matt.
yeah, he is the MVP. Couldn't do it without him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of the why, and then that kind of feeds into the legacy piece because triathlon is still very much male dominated, both from like the kind of hardcore numbers of people that are racing, but also from the media side. So there are more male commentators, there are more male podcasts. Males tend to be slightly more active on social media, and I was kind of like, you know what, I've got to be a part of a change. If you want something done, do it yourself. You know, be the change you want to see, all that kind of
Buck the
kind of
trend.
stuff. Buck the trend. We're going to do it differently. I was like, I am a relative unknown. I don't have any huge performances out on the field. You know, I'm very proud of my first year, but I didn't come in and win every race. You know, I have a journey that I am on, and I just figured it would be powerful to show people how I'm going from being an age grouper who did her first Ironman just to finish it to wanting to win the world championships and create a journey that's around that. And that's not winning the world championships this year. Please, no one bite my head off. Like, this is like a 10-year project that we're on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very realistic about this, but it's all part of it. And I think, yeah, that is kind of the other bit is we just need more women in the triathlon media space. So someone had to do it. So I thought, why not?
Yeah. So every episode you do you typically have a guest come on, or is it mostly like you're saying, just kind of I'm talking through the training this week with you and Matt, or what upcoming races? Because I heard listen to some of them like post Texas and that stuff. Like you unpacked that, but then you did have some guests.
Yeah, so we have a list of guests that we want on. I am not very organized or proactive. I can be very organized. I'm not very proactive. So we will get on to having more guests because I think we can all learn a lot from different sports and different um occupations who are related to sports. So that's kind of when we look at the journey to Kona, we want to talk to people that are, you know, heat specialists and all that sort of stuff. So we have like this roadmap that we have yet to start.
Cool.
But in general, so it's Matt and I talking each week. There's a bit of it that is, just like what's going on, what training am I doing, briefing and debriefing from races, which is quite fun. They're I guess the easiest content weeks to record because there's just so much to talk about when you're talking about a race that's happened. And then other bits is I like to have a topic that we run through. So we've done like a mindset one, and we've done like a beginners in triathlon one, and you know what happens when something goes wrong. So there are talking points through each of them. Oh, and we did a Ironman goes back to Kona one.
Nice.
So yeah, the intent is to record every week and just you get to have a coffee and listen to Matt and I talk about stuff that I guess we talk about anyway, but we've just got microphones in our faces.
Yeah. Well, that's what people like is the very honestly informative, but non overproduced, just like the basic conversations. Cause it does feel like, oh, I'm in the room, like experiencing the actual emotion or the thoughts, the processes that are going on. So I'm a fan of that. The documentation style is obviously a lot easier than the produced YouTube video. But it's more authentic in a lot of ways. So I dig it. That's awesome though that you're doing that.
Thanks.
So one of the stated goals that I was reading on one of your pages is that you want to create a sustainable business out of being a professional. You just finished your first year. I guess you're in your second year now. How's that going?
Better than expected.
Yeah.
So it was a huge jump in January last year, leaving my full-time job, but it just was not going to work. So I wanted to, financial stability is so important because we own a house and have to feed ourselves. So like it's a bit of a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And I guess it's probably one of the least talked about sides of being a professional athlete is
Yeah,
like
that
we
it's actually
have stuff that needs to be
hard.
paid for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the bills come in every single month and someone's got to put money towards them. I expected to make significant loss each year. Certainly for the first couple of years. And while like I, and if I guess if I was taking my pure earnings as being a pro athlete, I would be, but I'm self-employed as well. So I pick up some kind of on the side consultancy bits. And I do some coaching and all that sort of stuff, which has meant that we're not like, we're not losing the house.
Yeah.
We're, able to eat more than beans on toast,
Yeah.
which is good. And it has meant that like, I was able to travel to the US for a month, and we're planning potentially 2 more similar trips later on in the year and another training camp. And so it's in a much better space than I expected it to be
Yeah.
kind of midway through my second year as a pro, which is really cool. Like it's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah. Congratulations. I've heard stories of, sleeping on people's couches for a couple of years and that kind of stuff. So to be able to be at that place is definitely something special, and hopefully affords you the opportunity to continue to build toward being world champion.
At some
So
point. Yeah.
yeah,
And
at some
I
point.
think I'm very fortunate to be able to learn from people that are successful in this sport. And it was Philip Sepp actually last year said, be professional and the rest will come.
Mm,
And that's kind of just how we've gone about things is you've got to act like you've been here for years. And that's not acting with the arrogance that you know everything, but it's act as though you're well entrenched within the sport, and brands will treat you as though you are, and they won't try and take advantage of the fact that you're new and you might just need kit. And it's like, actually no, that's not what running a business is. I don't just need free stuff. And making sure that my body is fully looked after and not just the training. And
mm,
you're just professional with how you go about everything, and you're booking instead of super early morning flights or super late night flights because they're cheap. You're booking the flights at the time of day that make the most sense for your performance, whatever it is that you're kind of going to perform for.
it's a good point.
um yeah, and that's just been, I mean, it's how we've driven the from the point that you said it, like the last half of that last year and then the first half of this year. I think it's paying off.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
yeah. Well, we'll continue to check in. So for you and Matt, like obviously, there's some financial pressure, and you guys have this new lifestyle that you're figuring out. How is it going in terms of just figuring out what the balance looks like? Because he has to take the wheel in some areas and then take the back seat in others, and vice versa. And I know that can um, require a lot of communication for a relationship to be going well. So if you don't mind
Mm.
me asking, how's it going?
Yeah, he is as bought into this as I am, which has been amazing.
Yeah.
And I genuinely could not do it without him. So when we looked at, so it's always a joint decision. So should I turn professional was not a decision that I made on my own. Should I hand in my notice at my job was not a decision that I made on my own. He supports me across the board with all of the kind of brands that we work with, and obviously the development of the podcast, the running of the YouTube when we get around to it, and
Hmm.
Instagram and stuff like that. So this is a joint partnership. I just happen to be the one that goes out on the race course. And I think he's quite thankful that he doesn't need to do that.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do Ironmans
Yeah.
frequently. But it does take a lot of communication, and it takes some like very robust conversations around what I need and what he needs. And there are days where, I'm not that fun and I'm emotional and I'm tired because I'm in the middle of an Ironman block. But he still needs something from me with regards to kind of another part of the business. And I have to deliver. I can't just not just because I can't be bothered because I'm tired.
Mm,
And he does a brilliant job of managing me through stuff like that, because I know it's not easy because I get annoyed with myself. But I think we're both quite even keeled. Like neither of us really, I hate arguing, I hate confrontation.
mm.
So our default is always to just talk things through,
Yeah.
which is very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. As long as you can make it happen. I know for me, like I tend to be the flamethrower down the foxhole kind of a guy. Like, let's get this out and deal with it right now. And then my wife is a bit more like you, where she's like, I'm just gonna not talk for a few minutes, but we're gonna talk about it in a little bit later. So it's a different dynamic. And I've learned after being married almost 8 years, Throwing the flamethrower down the foxhole isn't always the best
It's
way to
not,
get it
no,
out in
it's
the
not
open.
quite the right one.
Yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah.
mean, there are, so I think when it comes to, once I've decided that I want to do something, I'm like, well, let's just go and do it now.
Yeah.
Matt's always the one that's like, why don't we take a breath and actually think about more than the next 20 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and decide, whether or not it's actually a good thing, or, let's plan like how much is it. The podcast is a really, really good example. I
Mm-hmm.
decided that we were going to do one, and he was like, have you priced it up yet? Like, do you know how
What a
much
thought.
money this
Yeah.
costs? I was like, oh, it'll be fine, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like you were saying too, earlier, just like how emotions can change things. It's always interesting to me how when I am very emotional or anyone is emotional about something, it can inflate the size of whatever it is you're talking about or dealing with in such a drastic way. Because in the moment when I'm really angry or upset or sad or whatever, it seems insurmountable. It seems
Mm.
like there is no other way than to just blow this thing up. But then you come back 20, 30 minutes, a day later, sometimes, depending on what the issue is, and it's like, oh, huh. When the blood pressure comes down, it's just everything seems to like change quite a
Yeah,
bit. Yeah.
mountains literally become molehills.
Yeah,
It's just
seriously.
so easy.
Yeah. 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 It's so fascinating. So for you, when it comes to, I guess we'll ask about Ironman because it takes a lot of focus, determination, and flexibility. What does it take for you to get in the zone, to get in the right headspace, to approach a race like that?
So I I love Ironmans. Like, for me, it's like Christmas Day because I've done all the hard work and I just get to go and do the thing that I've trained for and that I love the most.
Mm,
There are kind of elements of confidence that I kind of need to have, I guess, from training in the weeks leading up that are important for me to allow myself to feel the excitement on race day and not have those kind of moments of trepidation. So I feel like I've got Ironman Hamburg in like 2 weeks, which is bizarre, but I've ticked a lot of those boxes because I did an Ironman 3 weeks ago. So you're like, oh, okay, well I've kind of fed the self belief thing because I've already achieved it and we did all right. So that's kind of fine. But quite often I'll be like, there'll be a bike ride that I want to make sure that I do, and it'll be a specific bike ride that coach probably doesn't care. But for me, I'm like, this is one that I want to do and I want to do well.
yeah.
Similarly with a long run, like I want to have done a specific long run just to, it's like almost ease the fears because Ironmans are really long, like they're really hard. Um, and so much of that is about the adventure of just doing it. So like what I love more about Ironmans than, and I don't get it with 70.3s, is you stand on that start line and genuinely anything could happen.
Hmm.
Like there is a very real possibility that you don't finish the race for whatever reason, just because it's so long and so much could happen. Um, so that like the confidence side of it is really important for me to feel the joy and excitement on race day.
Yeah.
Even though anything could happen, I just feel ready to take it on
Mm,
and deal with it.
yeah. So 2 weeks coming up.
Mm.
Yeah, you have some of that confidence. Yeah, I can see like it's struggling a little
Yeah,
bit. Like it's a
yeah,
big undertaking. How do you think
it
it's gonna
is.
go?
I have no idea,
Yeah.
and that's really refreshing. I've never done an Ironman with quite such a short turnaround before.
Hmm.
And that was intentional because I wanted to do the Pro Series this year, and we needed to do it in a way that wasn't gonna cost me lots of money and time flying too many long haul kind of
Hmm.
flights. So we did the trip to the States and ticked off Oceanside and Texas. Obviously, there's one in Europe, so it makes sense to do it. Um, so yeah, flying out to Hamburg, not, and I don't know what to expect, which is fine. Like I feel
Yeah, it's new
I
territory.
yeah, it is new territory, and I think I'm in a good place after after Texas, sorry. And I'm excited to go out and race hard, which I think is all that you can ask for. But beyond that, like I don't really know, and I don't tend to go into races with like what targets. Like I want to hold this much power. Like I'll have a range, and
Hmm.
I'll have a range on the run that I want to shoot for. But a lot of it's around the execution, and
Hmm.
I'm confident that I'll be able to execute it, and I'll be able to fuel as I want to fuel, and I'll be able to ride my bike as I want to ride my bike. And what that looks like is just what it looks like on the day. And I
Yeah.
don't know what that will be.
What it looks like and feels like. Yeah, I've definitely been
Yeah.
to that place where I had a grandiose vision in my head of what it was going to look like when I get off of a pretty good bike. And then I'm like, oh, wow, my legs just aren't working how I really thought that they were going to work. And you try to push them and then the heart just like explodes. And you're like, what in the world?
Yep.
Yeah. So what do you think? I mean, aside from finishing, like obviously you want to finish and you have some ranges, but in your mind, what do you think would make you feel like, oh, that was a successful race?
I really want to have a good marathon. I don't want a good half marathon. I want a good full marathon. I
Yeah.
running for me is like of the three, it's the one that is probably the most volatile. So it will either be excellent or it won't. Um, and I had a really great race in Chattanooga last year when it rained. So
Oh,
it was
yeah.
my best power that I had on a bike ever. And then I was expecting to probably blow up on the run. So it was raining and it was a hurricane. It was super windy. And I just wanted to get off the bike because I felt so unsafe. So I
Yeah.
rode very, very hard and expected that to like pay for that on the run, but I didn't. And I ran I think it was like a 17-minute PB. I
Wow.
would love to get close to executing that again, but in chats we didn't have a swim because the hurricane, it's not
Yeah, it was
safe.
crazy. I was there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That was wild.
So I'd like to get close to executing that. Is kind of something that's in the back of my mind.
Yeah, good deal.
Mm.
So then let me ask you, for the broader scope of the season, kind of a little bit in closing, what needs to happen for you the rest of this year for you to feel like you're on the right track?
I think finishing the pro series, I would love to be in a position where I kind of place as high as I can. That would be quite cool. But just executing 5 races of the field sizes that we're seeing is way harder than you can anticipate. Like we've seen it already, the amount of DNFs and people having to change their seasons because a pro series race didn't kind of go to plan. So I think ticking off the 5 pro series races and being like, yeah, you know what, I executed them as I wanted to,
Yeah,
and we finished, I don't know, if finished 35th and that's what we've done, then that's fine. I'd love to be top 15. That would be great overall in the series. um and then we'll do some other races. I'd like to podiums are fun.
yeah,
They're really great. And we'll
of
have some
course.
races later in the year that we kind of shoot for that. But
Yeah,
it was a different kind of year because when choosing to tackle the pro series, I'm under no illusion. If I podium at a pro series race, it would be absolutely outstanding,
hmm,
utterly outstanding this
yeah,
year. So it's not something that we came in aiming for.
yeah,
Um, so when you then say, well, what would a successful season look like? It's like, well, it's kind of hard to say because I
yeah,
came into it actually just wanting to do some good racing,
yeah.
and taking the finishing positions like completely out of it. Um, I would like to have a solid race in Kona. I've had a DNF and I've had a walking marathon there.
The heat
So I,
stroke.
yeah, heat stroke twice. So I would just like that would be excellent if we can just have an okay day.
Yeah,
That would be great.
yeah.
I'm sure that anyone that's gone to Kona will know is really hard.
Yeah, yeah, I can only imagine. I haven't been there. I've been to Hawaii, but never for the race and never the level of heat that is required to sustain for,
Mm,
yeah, so many hours. But I really admire how you have talked a lot about your professional journey in the context of we, which I assume is you and Matt and your
yeah.
team, like sponsors. I think that's really important because um, it is an individual sport on the race course to a degree. But to hear about the larger team aspect that's definitely involved to get you those flight times that are best for your body and get the nutrition, get your bike, congrats on the Ventum and like all of that stuff.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. Well, let me ask you this one final question. Is there any questions that you feel like I should have asked you?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Okay.
That's a
Well,
bit
good.
boring, isn't it?
No, 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 it's all good. Yeah. I mean, sometimes people have nothing to say, sometimes they do. Yeah, it's always fun to ask any sort of a question just to see where the conversation flows. I don't like to try to keep it super regimented because natural conversations always seem to be the most interesting for anyone listening and being a part of them. So yeah. But, well, Steph, I really appreciate, and you do prefer Steph, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Steph's great.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, Steph, to come on my humble podcast and share your story. Wish you all the best. This will actually air after Hamburg, so we'll have to link some of the results or some of your post recap stuff from your pod or whatnot in the show notes. But yeah, looking forward to tracking it, and thank you again for taking the time.
And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much to Steph for coming on and taking the time for me to ask questions about her life. It is cool to hear about her journey so far, and wishing her all the best as she continues through the rest of this 2025 season and in through Kona and into next year. Make sure to go check out in the show notes her podcast, Buck the Trend, new and up and coming podcast, and it's a fun one to listen to if you want a little bit more insight to the pro world of triathlon. If you made it to this point in the podcast, though, just want to say thanks. Really appreciate you being here. If you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. That really helps to continue grow the pod. If you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of those things, if you could also like, comment, review, and anything that you can do on those platforms that continues to help grow this pod. Check out the show notes again for all the stuff in there. Really appreciate you guys being here, and we will connect with you in the next one. Peace.